I have to remember to hit the go live button twice because you might accidentally go live by hitting the button once. Oh, Janice, I don't have a mic for you. What's going on? Your mic is she muted herself. She walked away. She went away. Hey now, everybody. It's Music Therapy Laz here on the Music
I'm here.
Is. Yeah, she's back. The Music Is Therapy Show with Janice Lala in La La Land. I wonder how she gets to La La Land. You can probably give us some tips on how you get there. Now she can actually hear what I'm saying. I was saying we have to find out what are some of your tips on how to get to La La Land.
We gotta be born there first thing.
Right?
I was born there, so I had no choice.
You had no choice. I'm gonna knock your mic down just a little bit because it's a little on the hot side. Where do I do that? Edit something. Edit mic settings. Oh, what happened? And then we've got Brent, Octopus Ears, also in the chat. I'm gonna put you on automatic mic adjust. That way you should be all right. Echo cancellation on. And speak, Janice. Let's hear you.
Woof.
Woof. Use words like human words.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now you sound better now.
What you tell a dog to do is speak, and they go.
That sounds much better now. Much better now. How about you, Brent? How do you sound? We did this earlier, but we're doing it again now.
Check one. Check one. How do I sound? How we sound?
You could be a little louder. Go a little more up on the mic there.
Okay. What's up, Paul McNary?
Up the mic, but you know.
Ian.
What's up, Patty? What's up, MPN? Ryan Hall, Blackjack Guitar, Eddie Faye. What's up, man?
Right on, Brent, keep going. You can do the hellos to everyone. William De Silva.
What's happening?
What's up,
Matt
Ryan?
Stewart, Keith H.
Patty Dill, Patty in the chat. Patty's back. Nice to see you, Patty. We got MPN, who was in the show last night with Johnny and Ron. That was a good show, man.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah. Patty saying hi to everyone. Eddie Faye. What's up, Eddie Faye? Eddie Faye looks so much like my Uncle Art, at least in that little tiny thumbnail there. Patrick Trites, new to the chat, I believe. Thank you for joining, dude. Hit that subscribe and like and all that stuff because I'm trying to grow this channel. Because guess what? I mean, I know this is like a music channel and it's a music therapy channel. And this show is much more serious and sciencey and stuff like that than the Thursday night gear and demo show, which I kind of talk about whatever. But in this one, we try to stay on topic for the most part, right? But yeah, if you're new to this channel, spread the word. Tell me what you like and don't like in the comments, of course. Everyone, leave me way more comments than you do. I get 2 or 3 or 4 comments. Leave me lots of comments. You can just say, hey, Laz, or, you know, what's for next week? You know, that kind of stuff. Tell me if you want to know something else. We might go back to the psilocybin thing next week and continue that because that's such a deep, I had to say it. Such a deep subject, right? And when I say deep, I'm kind of making a little joke about how, you know, psilocybins can take you down the rabbit hole pretty freaking deep, right? If anyone's been, you know, anyone partake in psilocybins or any other psychedelic type of drug or effective drug, including marijuana, by the way, it does have that kind of effect on some people. Never has so much. There were a couple times. Certain kind of marijuana.
You know what the most commonly used psychoactive drug is?
I would say probably marijuana.
It's coffee.
Probably mushrooms.
Coffee, really?
Coffee, psychoactive? I don't know about that.
It is.
I guess
it's classified as a psychoactive drug.
Oh my God! Some of these people, how they classify things. That's part of the thing. You got to look back at that. Like, why do people classify the way they classify things? That might make you think about, you know, what was their purpose. You know, but maybe it was scientific. I don't know. We'll look into that. But not everyone who's involved in science is right when it comes to how to categorize things. And sometimes the way we categorize things, right, it could be harmful depending on you know how it's done. And in the sense that, and I think part of it is also, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? We know so much more now that we've had over maybe about 100 years or so of scientific investigation into things like these drugs, right? So we're getting to understand their effect on human behavior, culture, society, human development, a big part of today's subject. Today, I'm going to talk a lot about human development and how marijuana and the use of cannabinoids, cannabis, is going to affect you. But Dan Gorman also here too. Boomster Black.
All day,
or
all
is
night.
is it Boomster Block? I guess it's Black. Depends on where you're from, dude. Could be Boomster Black. All day, all night, dude. It's been a while, man. What's up, dude?
Cheers, guys.
Paul McNary, I think we said hi to you earlier on. Blackjack guitar used to be
set up by Marshall. Why is my mouth dry?
Well, you know, we could show you studies. Greasy Monkey Guitars also here. Dudes, I hung out with Seth Presley yesterday. That was very cool. This dude fell asleep. This guy down here. He missed out big time. Keith H also here. Matt Stewart. And who else did we miss? We said hello to Ian. Ian's Guitar Shack.
Greasy Monkey Guitars.
Yeah, I said hi to him just a second ago. I think that we got everyone so far. So if there's anyone new, 22 people here on a Sunday morning. Thank you for joining us on the Music is Therapy show. And we will talk about not just how music and marijuana and cannabis and all that, the culture of it all, as well as, you know, maybe some of the ancient times, ancient uses and practices, uses of marijuana and cannabis. Usually was for spiritual purposes, right? Like most of the drugs that we use today for fun, in the past, our ancient ancestors would, not even that ancient, our ancestors would use these in a more spiritual way, because they knew, hey, if they got to go out hunting and riding a horse to chase the buffalo down, it ain't gonna happen very successfully if you're high. But later that night, you know, when you got some bruises and you're feeling a little and you need a little, you know, relaxation or even to pep you up a little bit, you know, maybe that's the time, right? But it's very interesting. I don't know if you guys have known of or heard of Andrew Huberman, or Huberman, however you want to pronounce it.
I know the name.
He's a neuroscientist and doctor and professor, as well as in ophthalmology, or not. I don't know if it's ophthalmology, but I know it's about the eye. He's a specialist in the eye and our visual sense, right? And how it's connected to our brain. It's our most used and most relied on sense for the most part, right? Even though for guitarists, it's all about the hands, because it's all about the feel, right? We do less reading. I think, Brent, you might as well just show what you're doing, because it is a 420 show. You don't need to hide it today. You might as well demonstrate to the public here what exactly is going on there. All right, so let's get it out on the table right now. What was that glass saxophone thing going on there that we heard just a second ago? Tell us.
I'm just partaking in a little post 420 entertainment. That's all.
All right, post 420 entertainment, right on. And I have to say that I'm one of those people that was a very strong advocate for the decriminalization, is the way I put it, not just legalization. The decriminalization of marijuana in the United States should be a federal law in my mind. But that's hard to push on some people that have states that want to have their own state laws. And I get it, you know, but if you're coming through a state and you're bringing a bag of stuff because your doctor prescribes it for you because you're a veteran and you have PTSD and some other issues, and you're driving through that state and you get pulled over because you're black. Sorry, but there's a documentary on this, so this is why I'm making it very clear that because this guy is black, he's pulled over. And then they you know, he actually tells them that, yeah, I have marijuana in the car because I use that as a medicinal thing. And they arrest the guy and basically ruin this family's entire life. And he's just a veteran, and he's not like doing anything. He's not hurting anybody. Anyway, so to me, the most important part of this movement, if you want to call it that 420 being, you know, a day of protest, that people would go to a park or wherever and get together and protest the criminalization and illegal usage of marijuana until now, when now it's legal. If there was like a yay button on here, is there like, that's the closest thing I've got. I don't have like I got this. I got that. Anyway, I need like cheers, like 1,000,000 people strong cheer, right? Thank goodness, because in my mind, I think the criminalization of a lot of these drugs was a way to keep people down and control populations of people purposefully. That's my theory. It's not only my theory, it's a lot of other people's theory. Still illegal in Indiana, you see? Yeah. I wonder what would happen if it got legalized in Indiana. Would that cause problems? To me, I think the illegalization of a lot of things from the Prohibition era stemmed from a lot of people's usage of drugs and things because they were stressed out by the new world of the industrialized, kind of culture and society. We went from a pastoral type, working on farms and building boats and things like that kind of world, and going from that to an industrialized society, and the pressures and stresses of living and working in the industrialized society, I think, caused a lot of those stresses. You were sitting or working in the same place at the same time. You weren't out and about in nature, moving around, walking around, taking things here and there and doing stuff and building stuff. You're in a room with a lot of other people, and then there was more disease, and children were working, all this kind of stuff, which in the past, hey kid, go pick some, get some of the eggs from the hen house, or milk the cow or whatever. That might have been hard work too, sure, but I don't think it compares to the kind of work maybe that you would be doing stuck in like some textile factory as a child back in the day. What's up, Holly Lewis, also here. Wow, she says, I don't know how long my eyeballs will allow me to stay awake, but I'm finally made alive. Okay, right on. Holly, you don't live like in Asia or something. You should be awake at this time. But it depends on your work and whatever you do. Maybe you're up at night, doing your broadcasts and stuff. Because Holly Lewis, I don't know if you know, she's a bona fide radio broadcaster. Cool. Right. What's up, Holly? Yeah, by the way, check out her channel and check out her Facebook stuff. I don't know if you do Instagram and all that too, Holly, but yeah, check out Holly's stuff, man. Yeah, she's nocturalis, Holly Lewis.
I think I got 1 hour sleep last night.
Oh my God. Janice, stop. You need to sleep. We're going to have a conversation, not after today's show, but I'm going to call you sometime during the week when I'm driving around or whatnot, when I have like time to have a good chat with you. Sleep is so important.
You tell those switch people to go to sleep too.
No, you need to have self-control. All right, we'll get back. Oh my God. Oh, I meant to hit this button. Sorry. I meant to hit this one. Oh, here it is. All right. I'll try to stay away from the silly little.
And I was awake for
this Johnny. Is all Johnny Bean's fault. All of this is Johnny Bean's fault, kind of.
And wait a minute. I was up till like 25 minutes after 2 with Johnny still live. So, I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it's right. Great.
So, let's get right into it. Eddie Faye, thank you very much for your comment here, because this will get us going into this topic right off the bat, right? So, yeah, to play the devil's advocate, right? If you legalize it, is that a tacit approval for people to use it anytime, anywhere? Like teachers on a coffee break? Depends on what the class was like before. Or your food prep workers, construction workers, any negatives? Absolutely, there's a whole slew of negatives. And
but so, wait a minute, let me just add something here.
All right.
The law around here is that if you are not allowed to smoke cigarettes in an area, you're not allowed to smoke pot.
Right. And why is that, Holly? And why is that, Janice?
It's just the law that they have. So I mean,
but why do you think that? Tell me what
you can't smoke it in your school. You can't smoke other places
and why
stuff like that, because that's what they say.
Okay, all right. They say it's not because it's just what they say. People voted on these laws. Some people administered them because they were administering these laws as an executive power of whatever government they're ahead of or whatever. Right?
There's this bar.
But
there's this bar that I used to hang out with Brian all the time. It's called Smoky Joe's. They want to turn that spot into a dispensary, but people are outraged that people are might be driving away with pot, but they're not really concerned whether they drove away drunk.
Well, let me get into this. So let me explain. Like I was asking you why. I'll answer the question why. So the reason why is that people made laws because they knew from observable data, right, that people cannot be in control of their movements, their behavior, their thoughts, even at times. And it's very difficult to be in control, say, if you're teaching some kids at a school or if you're operating heavy machinery,
well, that's part of the thing that you got to be really,
all these kinds of things. You're gonna have right. You have less ability to focus.
Your only responsibility to know when to do it and when not to do it.
Yeah, and what the point is that what happens is these chemicals alter your brain's ability to focus on a task at the time when you're trying to do it. Now, in some ways, in certain tasks, it might actually be beneficial, right? And Brent and I were talking about this a little bit before in the green room, as we call it, behind the green door. No, I'm kidding. In the green and we were talking about how he thinks. Tell us, Brent. Tell us what you think.
Well, in this context, I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know how to put this. Like booze, I'm with Boomster on this one. Booze, I think, is worse for you, and I want to say that everybody it does react differently based not only on their genetics but their tolerance levels and things like that. So, like a small amount of marijuana for me does not affect me. It just doesn't. Like I don't.
Because you have a resistance built up.
I have a strong tolerance to it, so I can still. I mean, I'm fast with the knife, no matter what. It's like when it comes to my job, I can do it. But overall, like I don't agree with people. You shouldn't use it all the time. It should be you are your best when you're sober. There's no doubt about that.
And that's your opinion because from observational data, you observe what's going on around you, that people that are high are probably not going to be in as good control or able to focus on a task when they need to perform that. So that's why athletes don't get high when they're doing their performance.
No, that's not true. Athletes actually do. A lot of athletes
during performance.
Yeah,
they get high during performance.
Well, like in the locker room and then go out.
Okay, and maybe because they're so pumped up, they need to calm down a little bit or something, or do you think it's the anxiety?
Some of that, but there's also
anxiety related.
Yeah, people believe that it'll, help you focus in a way too, because it relieves your anxiety, helps you get rid of everything else and just focus on one task. And that's why I'm not sure how to feel on the when it comes to focus, because it can actually help you focus in ways.
In some ways. So this is very interesting. So let's not get too far like off tangents. So
I was going to say that I know right now at this point, as stoned as I am right now, I'm not allowed to drive. I know enough not to drive under any circumstances when I'm really under the influence of anything.
Yeah, I mean, and now here William De Silva is like making a point to that he tried his damnedest to enjoy alcohol, but it just didn't vibe with him. Not his kind of buzz, for me. And so this is the thing. So let's get into it. So we were talking about. Let me say a few things. So when I was asking Janice why do they have these laws? Okay, well, observationally we know that people can put themselves and others in danger. All right, so various forms of danger when they're not able to focus on what they're doing, or they don't know what's going on because they're high. And we've all been high in one way or another. We're adults. People over 25, studies show, their brain is fully developed, and the effects of these things can have positive effects, obviously. What studies have been showing, there's some really, really good studies out of Canada and whatnot. I'm going to put all these links into the description after the show. I didn't have time before. I think I might have had time. I probably didn't, to put the Andrew Huberman lab. It's a Stanford doctor, neuroscientist and whatnot, teaches there and all that. Anyway, There's a lot of really good information in this 2+ hour long podcast that he does. And then he's got in his podcast listed the studies that he's referring to in regards to the data or information. And sure, we don't know everything about all this stuff, just like we don't know everything about the universe, but we know a lot more now that, for one, we've decriminalized it. Big yahoo about that is that now we can study it. Because before, scientists weren't even allowed to study it because it was illegal. And that's just asinine. I'm sorry I'm using that word, but it's just asinine that you illegalize something to the point where you can't even study it. Now, I get it when it comes to something like nuclear power and nuclear bombs and nuclear, yeah, there's some things that, no, you don't allow anybody to do, and you should have a license or have a medical doctor, license, or you should have some reasonable explanation as to why you can't just, I'm going to go out and experiment on, making a black hole in my basement because, I'm super smart scientist kid like Neil deGrasse Tyson or somebody like that. It could be dangerous. That guy wiped out the power grid of an entire city when he was doing that experiment, and good for him, he's smart. But what if somebody died because the power just went off and their defibrillator wasn't working, or their machine wasn't keeping them alive, or whatever, you know what I mean? So we have to have regulation of some sort in a society of millions of people living together. If you're out in the village somewhere in a tribe in the middle of wherever, sure, you're not going to have that much effect on others. But when you're living in a society of millions of people, we have to have rules and laws, right? John Z 351.
Yeah, but I just want to say one small thing real quick. When it comes to like the work situations, when it comes to smoking and things like that, there already are a lot of laws in place. Like if you cause an accident of some kind, one of the first things they do is drug test you.
Right.
So it's like there already are these safety nets in place for to catch people that are doing that, because they obviously,
but the rules are there
immediately.
So the rules are there based on observational data by scientists and others.
And truthfully, they probably
that data should be
before they had to observe it. They probably knew someone's gonna, it's inevitable, really, that someone's gonna be screwing up.
Well, and you can just, cell phone
from alcohol,
people using cell phones in a car or wherever has probably caused more death and dangerous behavior, and it's not a drug. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be about a drug. It's about, like, we try to regulate and make rules so that we can function in society without being a danger to each other. There's Janice's 420
This is something
device.
that it was black with junk all over it. And in this dispensary, I bought 420 cleaner.
Oh, and it worked for you?
Yeah, it's perfect.
What was it, like vinegar or something? Or
it's I don't know.
It's kind of like a thick abrasive cleaner.
Abrasive cleaner, yes.
Like those green hand cleaner stuff that has
right.
in it. It's kind of like that.
It's
kind of like that, but it works really well.
Great.
Some of them didn't
so
work.
Boomster Black has a comment. Let's see. Oops, where'd he go? Jumped. Laz, I've been smoking weed nearly 50 years. My memory is better than the average person. There you go. Yeah. And so that's the whole thing, is that another point that I wanted to make about this is that scientists, what they've studied about this now, we can study it. So the biggest part to me about what's so positive about 420 being an event, and it was, a catalyst for the legalization of marijuana and other drugs. Now we're looking at psilocybins and other things being medically, legalized, and hopefully at some point recreationally legalized as well. Because in my mind, this is my perspective, I don't know your guys' thought, all right, as an adult, all right, I believe I should have a right to do what I want to my body, as long as I'm not hurting someone else. And that's the key. As long as I'm not putting anyone else in danger and hurting somebody else. If I go to a sweat lodge and I want to sweat it out in the sweat lodge and make myself hallucinate by not eating and not drinking, and then sweat it, and I start hallucinating, I'm doing the same chemical stuff to my brain almost as those drugs would do, right?
The way I'll push back on that, though, the way I'll push back that is that there still are laws that are like that otherwise, though, like when it comes to seatbelt laws it's technically illegal to kill yourself, you know, as weird as that is. You know, so there are laws that you aren't
luck
hurting
with the
anybody
insurance
else.
company, you know, because you do hurt. If you kill yourself, you are hurting other people. When you
let's
kill
take the
yourself, you hurt
seatbelt law,
other
for
people too.
instance. The seatbelt law, I mean, you're not hurting anybody by not wearing a seatbelt. You know, it's only potentially hurting yourself if you get into an accident, you know.
Well, I think the argument there might be that the manufacturers of those vehicles are hurting people by not putting them in there.
No, but but it's illegal to not wear it, even if they do have it. It's just you can get a ticket for not wearing. I've gotten a ticket.
Well,
for
if you fly out the windshield and someone has to swerve away from you, you know, and they crash and die, then that's your fault. So there's lots of crazy arguments. Well, I know that, you know, it's just like when they made it a law that you had to you know, drive 55 on the highway because we had a major problem with the oil back in the 70s, and the Carter administration thought, well, if we keep everyone to 55, which was the optimum at that time, optimum mile per hour to get the most out of your gas without wasting, if you went faster than that, you'd be wasting more gas per mile distance traveled. So because of that, you know, they came up with that law, and that was a scientifically based kind of decision. But bottom line is now cars are more efficient. They may actually have a higher mile per hour efficiency, right? So we're making it I'm making a metaphoric argument, you know, an analogy or whatever, that yeah, it depends, right, in the situation. I think the bottom line for me is that 420 was really important to at least legalize or decriminalize marijuana and the use of or, you know, these drugs, so that we can at least study them, at least give scientists the opportunity and medical doctors the opportunity to study it. And now it's also been, you know, decriminalized for the use of these substances for recreational purposes. And why? Because people were being put in jail, which is really, really expensive and actually a lot more detrimental to society and
Can you
even those
highlight my comment?
Oh, where's your comment? I love
up higher.
I love texting. I can get in a word.
Go up higher to read my comment.
Oh, I was less inclined to argue Jim's drinking as opposed to his smoking. It didn't harm me when he drank. It harmed me when he smoked cigarettes. Cigarettes, yeah, of course. See, there you go. And that's the whole point about, like, we're talking about why, you know, in a classroom or during a break at school or whatnot, you know, if that teacher could do a better job teaching by having a gummy in the middle of the class day because she's stressing the heck out because there's, you know, too many kids in the class and she's, you know, wigging out, or he, you know, maybe it's a good thing. And this is the whole thing, that I think it is left up to a person to make that decision themselves. And there are rules. People could be drug tested for a variety of reasons, but I think it depends on the type of job you have. And that's why I brought up the point. What if you're an artist? Maybe, you know, you're going to function better and have more creative ideas. A lot of .com people came up with a lot of great ideas high on shrooms because, you know, it opened up possibilities. It opened up, you know, avenues of thinking, ways of thinking that broke barriers before, because, you know, your regular mind is so compartmentalized in some ways, so rigid. Opening up your consciousness through uses of psychedelics or even marijuana or whatever can help, you know. But alcohol, obviously, it has a lot of negative effects, and it was legal. It was the only legal drug for the longest time outside of, let's say, nicotine and cigarettes. You know, obviously have a lot of other negative aspects, especially the ones that are made by cigarette companies versus like you smoke, Brent, which is just pure tobacco, right?
Yeah, just loose leaf tobacco.
I can't be around
no chemicals. Yeah, and I smoked when I was young. Almost everybody I know, my family smoked. Everyone in my family except my dad and my grandmother smoked. So pretty much, I think only one of my cousins didn't smoke.
With me.
Yeah, cigarette smoking. My mom, like, there's a picture of my mom with a baby in one hand and a cigarette in the other hand. It's like, you know, that was in the house. You know, that was how we grew up in the 70s and 60s and 70s. And then, you know, if you ever watched that show Mad Men, on TV. I mean, it was a regular thing to have a bar in your office, you know, and people smoked and drank. You know, you wonder why we're maybe a more functional society in some ways and have achieved more in the 80s and 90s and 2000s than
Even
perhaps in the
in
past. Maybe
limousines,
because we're not less
they,
high.
they have
We're
bars
not
in limousines too.
Yeah, of course, you know. And so the whole point is that there's a level of functioning that you're not going to be able to achieve when you're high, but then there's also a level of awareness and functioning that you can only possibly achieve maybe when you're affected by some psychoactive or other kind of drug or whatever, right? When you're high. But when it comes to your brain development and your health, smoking anything is bad. Just so you know, Brent. You know that though.
Of course.
Vaping or smoking, anything ingested into your lungs, you guys, it's not good for you. It's going to cause problems.
Absolutely.
You know, it'll cause problems with how your veins and capillaries and everything function, not to mention the pulmonary, you know, your lungs. It's going to cause problems, which leads to eventually things like stroke and stuff like that. Not everybody, but, you know, there's a pretty high percentage that you're jumping into that pool of, oh, I'm going to have more likelihood of having stroke or this, that, and the other thing.
I mean, I used to have really healthy.
What's up, Alex?
I used to have really healthy, good lungs. You know, I did, and I don't anymore. It's from smoking, and it's not good. Don't smoke, kids. It's bad for you.
Yeah, and another thing too is
it's not worth it. There are other ways.
Not. As I cough. But
Alex was a witness to me being on Twitch late at night because I went into him as he was playing baseball on his on his
there
Twitch.
You go.
And he sent me over to this musician. We rated his channel, and I was on that musicians thing for about 3 hours. You can't get away with it. Twitch should be a drug too.
Twitch?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a drug, but it is
addictive.
It is like a lot of things. They're finding, you know, cell phone use and technology use. We're becoming addicted to it, but younger people, they're growing up in this. It's part of them already. It's like you're not going to be able to remove it. It's like, you know, take away cars from people. Oh, you can't have cars. It's bad for the environment and everything. People die on the highway. We should just all walk everywhere again, or use some form of public transportation that's more in control, so people are less likely to be hurt and die and cause, you know, it could all be maglev and electrical and you know, maybe less pollution locally in the area. It could probably be contained and controlled more and wherever they're creating the energy, right? Bottom line being, there's all these arguments for anything, right? But for sure, you know, you're not going to be able to get that across to society, you know, once the Pandora's box is open, as they say, right? But let's respond to some comments that people made here. So Ian, congratulations, dude. Now here's the good point of it. One of the things that we're not definitely doing more of when we're high on marijuana or drinking or any drugs for that matter, for the most part, we're not as active. See, and that is a very important part to human health, being active physically, socially, etc. Now, when I was younger, and even now, I'd always been more of a social smoker when it came to even cigarettes or drinking. Or I don't drink, you know, once in a while I'll have a bourbon at night, you know, once a week, maybe, not even that. I'll have a bourbon, little like a one shot, little, you know, with water and sip it, and it's kind of nice, like before bedtime kind of relaxation kind of thing. But I don't really do it that much. Once, God, when was the last time I did that? It's like a couple of weeks ago. So very rarely. It's kind of like a treat, kind of like a nice, you know, sometimes I feel like it watching, like, you know, Curb Your Enthusiasm or some funny thing, and I don't know, it's like, you know, something like that. But I don't typically partake in these things on my own. You know, I usually always was social for me, and in that way, I don't think it's unhealthy. But it can, you know, I've seen it on other people that, like with my sister, and you know, and one of my cousins, they'd get together and they you know, get rowdy when they drink and stuff, and it would be like, oh my god, this is out of control, you know. And I've seen it happen. Boomster Black also 102 days without nicotine. Good for you, man. Right on. And as long as you feel healthier, you know, that's the main thing. Boomster Black also quit years ago. Yeah. And I guess I'm lucky because there are other members in my family that, like my mom knows, because my grandfather was an alcoholic, that my Uncle Art was an alcoholic, that, you know, they can't find the limit. They can't sometimes stop once they start. And, you know, it could be a hereditary thing too when you're like that. So G. Butchnov, hey, what's up, dude? Liver cirrhosis is a horrible way to go. Witnessed a lot of it in my line of work. Yeah, right. As a police officer, you know, how did people deal with you know, stress? A lot of the bad stuff you see, you know, and that's why a lot of our military are coming back with PTSD and all kinds of other trauma. You know, everything from physical to emotional and psychological trauma that can affect you for the rest of your life, right? Yeah, so tie it back to music. Thank you, Eddie Faye, for helping with that. The good and bad, right? Because we only have so much time in this 1 hour. Yeah, you know, the thing is there are studies that show how it can induce creativity. So smoking marijuana or taking cannabis in some other form, whether or not smoked, if you're I know that when I smoke, it's not good for my lungs. It doesn't feel good for my lungs, you know. Taking a gummy is probably a better way to ingest you know, cannabis. THC is the chemical. But when it comes to like some of the good effects, you know, it does have these effects of I guess it reduces your, not guess, I mean, I know it's going to reduce your apprehension to try novel or do something that otherwise you might be afraid to do. So socially, why it's, you know, obviously commonly used socially, breaks down, you know, it's an icebreaker, breaks down those social barriers, right? You're more easily able to get into conversation with someone. Hey, can I borrow your lighter and light up a cigarette or smoke? Or and then you just start talking, you know. My mother, who's still smokes, and she's in her late 70s, smoked all her life, all around us as kids in the house and everything. Liquid courage, right, Alex? Yeah. You know, she told me the story that when she was working with the Red Cross during the big floods during, like, back, I think it was in the 90s in Mississippi, or might have been the late 80s. She noticed that a lot of the other counselors who were counseling people going through the trauma of the floods were stressing out and burning out faster that didn't smoke, but the smokers were able to handle it. And why? They go out and take that break and talk and chat amongst each other. Oh, I was just talking to this lady and blah blah blah, and oh, I was just talking to this family, and you know, and they would get it out. They would talk it out. Whereas the other ones just went from next call to the next call, and they didn't take as much break time, and they didn't have a moment for it to settle in or to have a little bit of introspection on it, you know, and then verbally talk about it and get it out. Like they say, talk therapy or group therapy or talking things out helps, right? And I think that has a lot. You're funny, yes. That is one of the ways that socially it's very positive as well, outside of the side of the creativity side, where you break, you know, through some of your barriers that you might have negative thoughts of, oh, I'm not good enough, or, you know, well, if you're high, you don't care as much of what other people think of you, and you don't care so much of what, you know, what you even think of yourself, or what the negative voices are telling you, oh, you can't do it, you know.
That's true. You think that's true?
Yeah. Don't you think it's true?
No.
You don't think it's true that if you're high, you're less likely to have inhibitions to try and do something new? Or
no, because I've done things straight that I never would do if I was stoned. I'm more conscious when I'm stoned.
You're the anomaly then, Janice.
No, you get paranoid in your
Congratulations. Yeah. Well, there's that. So now there's that. I'm just talking about, why people use drugs in the first place. And we're trying to bring it back to music. So the creativity side of things, right?
The creativity side of it for me is it's not necessarily that it makes you creative. For me, it's a mind altering effect. So your mind is different. So you're going to do different things. It doesn't necessarily mean, you're going to become this great creator because you're smoking weed. No, it's a mind altering thing. So it gives you a different perspective, and that perspective is usually good. But it's not, it might not always be.
So we have a question from Ed Dana here. What's the difference between Delta H and Delta 9 THC? So we're getting into the weeds here.
One number.
I couldn't wait for that one. Wrong button, by the way. I meant to hit this one. Anyway, so from what I read here, the psychoactive effects, Delta H THC is reported to produce a milder psychoactive high compared to Delta THC, which may be preferred by some users, right? So you might not want as high of, if you're looking into, like, you go to the dispensary and they have all these details and all this stuff, you can just Google it like I just did, and I learned.
Hey, you want to see some colors? Want to see some colors, lads?
Sure. Hold on, let me hold it up. I'm gonna put you in there. There you go. Oh, that's that dude that does the what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys like techno kind of music, if you want to call it techno, I wouldn't even call it that.
Oh, yeah, he's techno.
Yeah. Well, what's
Modular.
funny about vaping is that in some ways vaping is they're now that more and more people are doing it and they're doing more studies on it and more long-term studies and effects on it, there's some very bad sides of vaping too. So really what they're suggesting is, scientists actually, like this guy Huberman, is don't smoke at all. Anything, if you can, avoid it totally. If you can avoid it, try to find a way to totally avoid it.
Vaping is all about the type of vaping though too. Because if you have an actual volcano vape, like a really nice, $400 vape, those actually are probably a lot healthier for you because you're not burning.
It's just anything you're ingesting in your lungs are going to affect the capillaries. And
no, I am saying better as compared to smoking, because you're not burning the plant material. That's the big difference in vaping, because you're not burning plant material.
Well, more and more studies coming out, it's showing it. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but people think that, and this is what's interesting, what he was saying, is that, there's so much positivity out there now about vaping. We're ignoring a lot of the negativity, and people think that it's so much better.
Go look up a volcano vape real quick, because it's a totally different thing. It's not a handheld vape. Because the handheld vapes are the ones that are made with cheap metal and that can flake off and possibly be smoked, and those are the ones that I think are more dangerous. I think something like the volcano vape that's made high quality, I do think it'd be a little safer.
I'm sure it's probably safer than other forms of smoking or vaping, but anyway that you're taking into your lungs is not safe, is what this guy's saying. So
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And the cost of these things, that's a $500 thing, man.
Wow,
yeah, but there are people that have them say they're totally worth it because it changes the game. You feel, because you're not smoking plant material anymore. That's the big thing, instead of just taking in a bunch of carbon dioxide, you're just taking in the THC pretty much.
Right.
And I've smoked those before, man. It's totally different.
Eddie,
it's totally different.
Yeah, popcorn lung.
There you go.
G. Butchnoff. So if you don't know what popcorn lung is, look into that. It's basically where I'm using the wrong word, but inside your lungs you have this capillary kind of thing where it causes popcorn lung. Right. Yeah. Holly wants some actual factual data. There you go. Well, I'll put up all the scientific studies that are going to back up a lot of what Andrew Huberman here has to say, or you can go directly to his his site. Let me go ahead and do that.
I'm
I'll
here
give
for a
this to
good
you guys
time, not
right
a
now.
long time, Laz.
Yeah. No, I hear that, and that's fine. And that's the other argument. That's the other side of it. So let's maybe we'll switch this up from the negative to the positive. But I did want to, before I end on the negative sides of this, what most studies show, what's really most detrimental about cannabinoids and cannabis use of any kind, doesn't matter if it's gummies, CBDs, whatever. Any of these things affect, like what we were talking, some other comments up there earlier on in the show, have a lot to do with these receptors in our brain. There are natural, these kinds of receptors in our brain. It has a lot to do with the development of ourselves from when we're a blastocyte growing into a human being, and how that development occurs, especially in the mind, and when it affects things like the gray matter in our mind and in the lining of our brain. It can have a serious negative effect and can cause more psychosis, multiple times more than normal, right? Without ever having done any of these things. Versus, so if you're looking at wanting to be a healthy individual versus, you could have the argument like what you're saying, hey, I'm more healthy this way than with my brain without this stuff. And there's a good argument for that. And that's why we're looking at these things and trying to study and legalizing this so we can study them and also use them for whatever purposes we deem beneficial to us. But it's also important to know the science behind how it actually does affect the brain and mind and body, and then you can make an informed decision. So like what Holly's saying, I want information on that. You should have informed information, right? You should be given information that's accurate so you can make a decision on this stuff. And the bottom line is that while your brain is developing up until the age of 25 or so for most people, using any of these substances is not good. It can have a lot of negative effects. Once your brain is fully developed, it's much better. But most of these people, just like me, tried this stuff. I was 14 the first time I tried it, right?
I didn't try it till I was 20 because I was aware of the brain thing, and I was protective of my brain.
Good for you,
I didn't try it till I was older, and I didn't start heavily smoking until I was probably 25.
Yeah, and like Holly knows now, and
No,
one
that's
thing
not
that
true.
they
That's probably
say,
23.
that's good. The one thing that they say about use of any of this stuff, right? And she's paying for it now, right? Is that you can't turn back time. There's no time machine where you can go back and reverse the effects. So there's ways of countering the effects and stuff like that.
Everything's that way.
But yeah, there's what was
saying
that?
everything's that way. Everything's forward.
Oh, forward. Yeah, okay. I was like, what do you mean by that way? Yeah, forward. Well, forward could be that way, or it could be that way. Or no. Anyway, sorry.
The first way you pointed was the way I pointed.
I know. Because I don't know what way I'm pointing when I'm doing this stuff. Like this is to my left, but anyway.
I know. I was trying to make it look right for people going that way, because that's more forward.
So it's the real thing. So popcorn lung, because they thought it was safe, and this is what's a little bit dangerous. And I'll end the danger part, and then we'll get into the positives at the end here. That the danger is because we've legalized these things, and there's all this like euphoria around, this being, oh, it's such a good thing, it's great, and vaping's better, and blah 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 blah. Smoking, vaping, sucking anything into your lungs that's not like the air and oxygen that's clean is bad for you. Period. There's no argument against it. You can't argue around it. It's not good for your lungs. It's not good for your veins and your heart, and it's not good for your brain.
A long time.
All right.
But
that's mostly if you're a younger person, it's going to have a lot more damage on you than. And then they talk about prenatal, and when women are pregnant or gonna be planning for pregnancy, very bad. When you're lactating and feeding your baby with that milk, not good, because it interrupts the natural the way the cells have their own natural, I forget the exact word, but there's this cannabinoid kind of thing. Let me look it up. I have some notes.
Yo, what's up, Sean Hockey? Cheers, bro.
And
I always have my notes.
Who drank when they're pregnant, they have fetal alcohol syndrome babies.
Yeah, right. And what is fetal alcohol syndrome, right? So there's some, let me finish up on the negatives and then we'll go into the positive and we're almost over. Effects of marijuana, like will increase prolactin, which decreases testosterone, decreases dopamine, and it increases estrogen. You know, not necessarily good things for you as a developing person. On the fertility side of things, let's see. Yeah, the blood vessels thing about cannabis and whatnot. So yeah, and then how it can actually increase psychosis and psychotic episodes and behavior. You know, later in life even. So yeah, there's a lot of, you know, there's negative things about it, but it's not like 100%, you know, oh, everyone's gonna go nuts, you know, it's not like that at all, as we know. But there's just stuff that you should be aware of, that's all. And unfortunately we've made it so open and easy, like, oh, it's all fine, everything's good. Yeah, maybe wait till you're older when your brain's more developed and
well,
whatnot.
truthfully, there's a reason I brought up coffee. I think the same thing's going on with coffee. These kids are getting addicted to it when they're like 12 years old. It's like, why are you? You don't need it. You know, you don't need it at all, and you're just hurting yourself long term.
To get rid of the caffeine headache, withdrawal.
Yeah, but I'm all in for it being legal too.
That's
you know,
fact.
I think you should be able to grow it yourself.
Want to know why I smoke?
Why?
Because I'm competitive and to the point of being obnoxious when I'm not smoking. And so I'm just nicer when I smoke. I'm a nicer person, and so I choose to keep smoking.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be a nicer person than be overly competitive for no reason, because that's, I mean, I'm sure I could work on that, but weed just made it turn off, and it's like, okay, I'm good with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I totally respect that. I mean, I'll say try meditation and try some other things, you know.
Yeah,
and maybe you can work your way there
now, especially where I'm at now, because I'm feeling a lot better, just a lot more clear-headed now. So
Eddie Faye, no.
When I was younger, I was going through too much.
I have to answer this. But if you're pregnant and smoking weed, wouldn't it make the baby naturally more creative? No, it does not. Is it? As a matter of fact, they'll probably actually be a detriment to that child's development and brain development and neurological development, and could possibly cause problems.
It'd probably be a preemie too.
Yeah, could be more problems could definitely occur.
Probably be a premature baby.
Yeah, pork chops also dangerous but so tasty. And then here we get into the whole, you know, argument about what can we do to be happy and what's right or wrong, you know. So let's get into the positives. Let's end it on the positives. So let's see, who wants to start, Janice or Brent? Janice, you want to tell us about the positive effects of marijuana on your life, and why do you feel why do you feel people should be able to use it and do it whenever they want, or whatever you want to say about it?
I don't know. I haven't really you know, figured that out.
Why are you high right now? Tell us.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
There you go.
What's wrong with that?
What else we got to do, right?
I know. I did have a friend that told me that before. He said that's why he smokes. Is that it's like it's better than being bored. So I'm like, I get that.
Except for I do feel myself maybe at a detriment, because I know that when I smoke, I can't drive. I shouldn't drive, and you know, and I have to stay home because I can't drive. And so I'm saying to myself, well, maybe that's a bad thing, but I don't know. Maybe that's a bad thing. Because if people could call me up and say, you got to come, I can't come because I'm stoned. So what makes me more superior than Jim that was drunk every day,
right?
24/7.
Yeah. What you doing with your life, Janice?
Why
don't you leave the house once in a while? Come on. No.
So I'm understanding now more about things.
And you can, I know this is not necessarily how most people do it, but you can just eat some weed, like eat a little nug, You can
And as
just
a
eat
matter
it
of fact,
and it has benefit. It's good.
as a
It's better,
matter of
probably
fact,
way better for you than smoking.
way better. So hurrah to marijuana brownies. I got to tell you, the first time I had one, I'm like, it was a completely different high. And I'm like, man, this is so much more mellow and cool and kind
Oh,
of,
see,
yeah,
my first
you know?
experience was really bad on them. That's why I
Oh,
kind of
really?
shy away from them. I got way too high.
Yeah. And that's
I was
another
I
thing
was
too, Boomster
blacking
Black.
out,
It
dude.
can definitely help you quit harder drugs. And that's why, like, we were talking a lot about psilocybins the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue next week with that. It is, these drug war lies about it's a gateway drug and all this and that. You know what? Youth is a freaking gateway drug to everything bad, because
Well, they can't
youth
even
is
say
all
that
about
because there's
risk. I mean, you
alcohol.
stop a young person from risk. Right?
Alcohol lowers your guard a little bit when you drink, and so that's more of a
Yeah.
gateway drug than anything, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not even against alcohol. It's just like
You
it's
know,
all about self-responsibility, accountability, and
so
um,
I'll answer this, dude. Janice, why you smoke is the same reason why children spin round and round. Do you get what I'm
Because we're
saying? Because you're altering
all
your
you can, yes.
perspective on reality. You are suddenly, whoa, everything's different now. Suddenly your conscious, what you thought concrete, perception of reality is changed. And now you're like, whoa, this is weird and wild and crazy and cool. And, whoa. Suddenly it changes your perspective on your reality. And that can be a good thing. It can also be a shocking, scary, bad thing too, but you don't have to do drugs to be high. There are monks who meditate and they make themselves, go through all kinds of psychotic kind of stuff,
You got to read what Holly wrote, their
This
latest
one right here.
comment. That
Yeah.
cracked me
I started THC when I was a teen. Literally was hugging a tree and understanding the universe. Exactly. It'll change your perspective on reality because now you perceive it differently. And who's to say what perception is right? And that's why our ancients and our ancestors used a lot of these chemicals in a much more wise, less, how would I put it, a less recreational way. It was more of a spiritual journey thing, right? And it taught you about where your place was with the world.
Oh, the chat's great today,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I love the chat. It's awesome.
All day, all night.
Should
If
be
you ever
all
open a
drugs
can of
legal and
Country
safe
Time
supply.
lemonade
And
powder
I
and
agree.
smell it.
As a matter of fact, if you
I know
gave
exactly
heroin
what that
addicts,
smells like.
free heroin, they would be doing a lot less damage to themselves and others around them. You know,
Yeah,
there
I
would be
don't
a
agree with
lot
giving
less.
people heroin, though.
Well, talk to professionals in the field, and they'll tell you it's a lot better than them becoming hookers or stealing or thieving and hurting themselves and others to get it. And so when you look at cost benefit analysis, it way makes more sense. It might not seem ethical, up front, but you could possibly help them get off it that way too, and slowly maybe, dilute the amount and try to help them get off of it too, and help them see a kinder, gentler, more caring side of ourselves as humans, where we're caring for each other rather than just locking people away that we can't control or understand, or don't want to because they're too much trouble for us.
I certainly think we need to do something different than we have been doing and just allowing people to suffer. That's for sure. We need to, find a way to help people in just about any way we can, for sure.
Yeah. And I think the decriminalization of it has done immense good for our society. There's always going to be a pendulum kind of shift, and that's where we're seeing a lot of young people. I mean, you look at the 420 events now, and there's like way more people. And it's a cloud of smoke. I almost use that as my backdrop for the thumbnail. But I decided to go with something a little more fun.
It's like what Johnny says, being in Santa Cruz. It's all over the place in Santa Cruz.
Thanks, John, but you have no idea.
Everybody is smoking in public in Santa Cruz. They don't really do that around here.
Yeah, and I don't smoke much anymore either, G. But
maybe because they're used to it now because they've had the legalization longer, so it's more commonplace now over there, but not here. Everybody I feel is very more conscious and very responsible about it here.
Yeah, right. And then like what Ryan's saying here, the good side effects, people like my ex-girlfriend has had seizures daily, and with that and euphoria side of weed, the other can stop seizures with a few drops, right? Yeah, you can get the non-THC. So the THC is actually where you have a lot of the problems in the psychotic stuff that, the psychosis affects. The THC.
This is
So
going
you
to
can
be
get
a little bit
CBDs
of a
without the
tangent,
THC.
but that's, that's what part of World War II was fought about, was meth.
Yes.
Because the use of meth was deemed at, looked at as very bad, as a very bad thing by the Western world, us especially. And I think that was a part, besides obviously Pearl Harbor, but I think that's one of the few reasons we got into the war, was because, in both Germany and Japan were using it heavily in their soldiers. And
yeah,
I think it was a big moral problem for the United States. And
right.
So to me, like, I don't want to get so far to where we're like, okay, we're giving meth addicts meth, because it's just like, man, I don't know. It's just a line that I'm like afraid of,
Well, we should be doing it in a controlled and medically and caring way, while observing and continuing to, build data and changing our I guess, ways of using it that way. But legalizing it, I think, has done nothing but good so far. There's always going to be some bad with anything, but did it ever stop the youth of America from doing any kind of drugs? I mean, the joke that adults around me when I was a teenager would say is that, man, you guys can get the drugs easier than any adult. I mean, you go to the schoolyard, you can get anything pretty much within an hour or something. Just ask around and someone will connect you with somebody who can get whatever. And it was easier to get stuff as a teenager than it was for adults when it was totally illegal for teenagers. So it didn't matter. You could, it was harder to get alcohol as a teenager than it was to get drugs, because the illegalization made it so, um, such a moneymaker, right? That people would take the risk of even providing it to children. So because there was so much money in it. So you legalize it. Now you take the
meth is such an evil thing that I just don't
course.
think.
Yeah.
But like, to legalize it and to say that it's okay for someone to make this,
I'm
on
not
any
saying
level,
legalize it. I'm saying decriminalize is entirely different.
Okay, well, if you're gonna decriminalize
Decriminalize
it,
it.
then
Yeah.
I
People
don't know. Even
should
still,
treat.
you're gonna.
Yeah.
They should be. To me, if you're making that stuff, you're a criminal. That's. I don't
Okay.
want that to change.
And I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that a lot of these drugs, like crack cocaine, I don't know if you knew, but it was created and being used by the CIA in the beginning, from what I understand.
That's not meth, though. That I'm talking. I'm just
but
talking
crack
about meth.
cocaine is like, crack cocaine, and that was kind of introduced dispersed throughout the US, for a particular purpose, which was a very evil purpose. And I'm not saying the CIA as an organization, I'm saying bad members of, there were certain bad people that had bad intentions, probably joined the CIA to get the power to then have power to, bring about some of these bad intentions. Bottom line is that I think decriminalizing drugs should be the way forward, and it should be drug usage in whatever form should be used as a way of, I'm not just talking medicinal, but it should be used in a way where we're not doing it to harm, and we're not doing it just for recreational purposes, but we're doing it to treat. So in other words, people who are addicts or on drugs should be treated
but meth doesn't have a
medically.
place in that. There's
Okay, I'm
other
just
things to
saying,
use.
I'm no expert, and I'm not going to say I know. I'm just saying that whatever usage of these drugs there might be, it should be used in a way that is for treatment to help someone get better. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that if you cut off a heroin addict like cold turkey, right, like that, I don't know if that's good. it's better to bring someone down slow. So if you have someone who's a meth addict and you say, oh, you can't use it at all, or, maybe it's better find something else or whatever, but
that's why there's so much hope for mushrooms, because it can give you a good feeling, but it's actually genuinely good for you too.
Right.
And
we'll get more into that next week.
Yeah, so there's a lot of hope for mushrooms, because that's going to help with that kind of stuff. But dude, like meth is just it's evil stuff, and
there are,
you don't want people taking it on any level, unfortunately. And I understand people are addicts and they get addicted to it, and there's terrible repercussions of that, but it's like, sorry, there's no reason to make that stuff ever. Like there's no reason to ever make that stuff.
Gotcha. Let's move on. I want to end this.
Sorry. I had a personal friend that got addicted to it, and it was just all bad.
Dude. Yeah, totally get it. So like what Eddie's bringing up here, should there be any age limit to risk? Well, obviously we have age restrictions for driving. You have to have a license to practice medicine, and we have rules about this stuff for reasons. You have to have enough, life experience and knowledge to know how to handle some of these things. And I do believe it's perfectly reasonable to, and for obvious scientific, proven, I guess, reasons why we don't want to let it be legal for people under 21 or 25 or whatever, because we could just state, hey, it's going to mess your brain up and you may not understand why and how. So if you partake in this stuff before your brain is fully developed, you're causing problems for yourself and society, because it's going to cost society. And then we get into that argument about the cost of society. But I wanted to end it on, the positives, in that the most important side of 420 and the positives of legalization, and I believe all drugs of all kinds should be decriminalized, so that we can then treat these things as psychological or other mental health issues, rather than it being some criminal issue. We should treat people that are having problems with these things, that they become addicted, or if they even try something or do something, not having the knowledge about it and not being able to study it and perform, ways of using it in a way that can treat someone or benefit someone, it definitely was not a good thing. The drug war thing was really another way for the industrialized, military complex to gain more of a foothold and power over our society and the world. But look at what the drug war has done to the world. I mean, it's got wars against each other and all. Anyway,
I know you're totally right about all that, but what I'm afraid of, truthfully, I think I just kind of dawned on me. I think I'm afraid of the perfect drug, and that's what could possibly be made if you allow people to allow scientists to work with meth and heroin and all this stuff. They could possibly create the perfect drug that has no bad side effects, that gives you the ultimate good feeling, and the rest of life would be useless. Because that's why meth addicts are on the street, because like the high is so good, they don't want anything else. They don't care about anything else. That's what it is. And if scientists could create something that doesn't rot your teeth out of your head too.
Yeah, I mean I think that's like what we were talking about with LSD and psilocybins back in the 60s. That was kind of what what's his name, slipping my mind right now, what's his name was proposing, that drop in, drop out, whatever, tune out thing. He was saying everyone ought to be doing this drug because it's going to benefit society and human beings, forever. And in some ways he was wrong, in some ways he was right. We are learning a lot more about this, but if we have it criminalized, we'll not learn anything. And one of the things as an American, I want to say is that I believe we have a constitutional right to certain freedoms and control of our own body and whatnot. And balancing that out with how there can be things that are detrimental to us and others that we don't understand because we haven't studied them, can be a problem. Obviously, a lot of these drugs and things were categorized and illegalized, made criminal, by authority, because they did studies and they said, whoa, this is dangerous, this is bad. They didn't look enough at what the benefits were, because they didn't know any of the benefits, or they didn't care to know about the benefits because maybe it didn't serve their purpose. So I think for us, hey, Adam D, what's up, man? Happy 420, right? What I'm celebrating 424 is the decriminalization of it and the ability to medically study this stuff and find benefits if we can. There's always going to be fear of anything, dude. I mean, if you're worried about drugs, look out for AI, because maybe the drugs will help us become its slave, because we might not have any choice anyway. So there's all kinds of technological and other changes. We can't, the Pandora box argument. If you want to go live out and be off the grid, you can choose to do that, and there are people that actually
I am living off the grid.
There you go. But I mean, that's the one benefit that we have in if you want to, you can choose. There are societies and cultures and communities around the world. You can find them and you can go live,
I'm not off the grid, but I'm
you can go live in the hut in the jungle somewhere and go work on a African safari, whatchamacallit, some kind of plane over there just helping, what do they call it, like preserve, right? You can find, if you don't want to live in this world, in this society, there's so many other places you can go and work and be happy and do things. But I think illegalizing it has definitely been a detriment to our society in so many ways, and getting the information and the data out there, and for people to understand better what these drugs can do to us and how it works to affect us, good or bad, is only a good thing. We shouldn't be afraid of the knowledge of these things.
How do you test, like, let's say you were to decriminalize meth and were to test these things, how would you go about testing it? Because giving it to anything, I think, would be...
I'm not saying giving it out to people for free and go have fun. I'm talking about in the proper medical setting.
No, even giving someone that in a medical setting, I think is really,
I don't know. I'm just saying that I would leave that up to professionals who are trying to understand and study this, and, like, for example, studying how the addiction happens.
Sometimes professionals don't always make the right decisions.
Right. And that's why we have peer review, and that's why in the scientific, why I believe in science strongly, because it's peer reviewed. In other words, your competition is the other scientist who's trying to prove whether you're right or wrong. So either they can,
what if the dose of meth you give this person makes them lose their teeth?
Right. No, I agree with you, dude. I'm not saying give meth to people.
It's like,
there are clinics that treat people for methadone and other
where I was getting to is, like, even giving it to mice or something is really unethical, like, because we know it's bad. We know it, we've seen the results.
We only know it's bad because we've done some studies already on this, or observed some of it already.
Well, you could observe people, just go down to downtown anywhere.
And I don't mean by observe by looking observe, I mean scientific observation, like actually studying.
Janice, go ahead.
And now I gotta end this because this is way over time. I've got to go somewhere.
One of these teeth wet because of bad coke.
Really?
There you go.
So I understand.
And that's the other thing. You don't know how good it is because it's being made by who knows who and what freaking RV somewhere, right? like what Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
It's so let's end it, you guys, because it's 17 minutes past 11. I promised my sweetie I'd leave at 11, and it's already past.
Okay, G. Butch agrees with me. It's terrible stuff. It's scary.
Yeah. No, I'm not, dude. Let's not get so wrapped up in the meth thing. I did not say let's give it out and it's good for people. I'm saying
no. I know you didn't say that.
Decriminalize things so we can medically study them. That's all.
And and we're disagreeing on that.
When I'm saying study them, Brent, I'm saying we need to understand what this is, how it works, so we can find ways of treating it when somebody gets hooked on it. That's all. I'm trying to look at the benefit side. I'm not saying I'm saying let's not ignore it like it doesn't exist, like the drug war says, just don't do it, kind of like that's gonna work. It never worked. It won't work. People are gonna take chances and risks because either they're suicidal and they're killing themselves slowly. There's a lot going on in the mind and what makes a person psychotic, right? And that's psychotic kind of behavior. You could even say someone who's taking meth on a regular basis is psychotic because that's nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to understand, how does that, make their brain go that way, and how do we get them off? Because you got to understand how it works with the brain to reverse that or try to change it. That's all I'm saying. So I hope we're on the same track. It's all about
I've spoken to a meth addict, and they basically said that the high is unlike any. It's the highest of highs. It's if you feel like you're God, you feel like you're just on you're at the top of the best of everything. You feel like you're like you've ascended. You know what I mean? And like when you feel that way, and then it's actually rotting your body at the same time, dude, that's just evil.
I agree with you.
It's just scary stuff.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of people. We've lost a lot of people to pain medications that we thought were safe that weren't. Right. That doctors told us were safe. There's a lot of bottom line is that using drugs in general probably not good. For the most part, probably not good, unless we've been able to prove through our data and whatnot that we can do it safely. I took a chance doing ayahuasca in the jungle, hoping that I'm not gonna die.
Gee, Butch, Jesus Christ, man, I wasn't ready for that.
Oh, dude, I'm not gonna show that. We got to end this on a positive. Let me please end this on a positive. All right. Thank goodness that we've got this movement of 420 to bring about, the awareness and the decriminalization of marijuana, hopefully some other drugs as we move forward for the benefit of society, because the drugs out there doing what they're doing to humankind can in some ways be very harmful to people in society. And those people who feel like they're God, obviously an insane person in an insane asylum who thinks is Napoleon is no different. They're psychotic. And we have to try to help them get back to the real world, because if their life and their perception of their world is so bad that they need to go there to escape it, that's the problem. We need to get them back to where we can help those people,
there's also
in the real world,
people, there's stories of people accidentally, or like in Janice's situation, accidentally taking it, or just
or somebody
you're at being available at the slightest level.
Somebody roofies you at a party and rapes you. We just watched that Baby Reindeer series on Netflix. If you want to see a pretty wild, interesting introspection on human behavior, like that guy, what that guy went through, and it's based on a real story, and his own possible psychosis that he wasn't even aware of, that even allowed him to go down that path. Is pretty wild. So check that out if you want to see something about how the human brain can be pretty messed up, and in some cases can't be saved. And in some cases, that's why we criminalize certain behaviors, because we realize can't be saved. Gotta lock them behind a wall because they're too dangerous.
That's kind of what I think meth is, man. I really do. I think it's that kind of evil. It just needs to be locked up, thrown away. Find the recipe, and anybody that has it, burn the recipe. I don't care. Try to banish it from our existence. 420 is about what's great about 420 is
about marijuana.
It brings people together. People have it's another excuse for us to get together and hang out and enjoy just each other's company, and that's what
H2O
life
too.
is about, really. That's what we're great at.
H2O.
The human race is
well,
good.
Let's end it on Ian's Guitar Shack comment here. He likes his brain scrambled. All right, you guys, let's go out. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I got to end it. I got to go. 23 minutes past the hour. I let it go long because it's a very important subject. People have things to say about it. G. Butchlap says, weed chills people out. So there you go. All right. Hopefully it's not laced with something else. and we're all going to go to a happy place if you're not already there. I'm really happy to have that thing right there. You see that?
Thanks for answering my question earlier.
You're welcome.
With the test that we did.
Yeah, and by the way, Holly Lewis, I do know how 420 was coined because it's the police code for when there's some kind of a marijuana involved situation. We got a 420 in progress.
City Gin.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Janice is drinking vodka. Vodka, man. Have a great weekend. I do try to keep this show less silly and more scientific. I'll try to post up that Tuberman Lab that thing right now, because I think that really is probably one of the best things out there on cannabis that you can learn from. I'll put that into the description right now. And yeah, man, we'll see you on the next show. Next week, we'll go a little bit more into the psilocybin world of things and music. We slightly touched music and creativity and stuff on this one. Next week, maybe we can get some more in on the psilocybin side of things, and then make some suggestions, comments, whatnot, in the, on the show, after the show. Let me know what you guys think about this show, what you'd like to hear about, learn about. We can get into that. And we might try to get more on some of the music therapy subject of things soon as well. Until next time, you guys.
Suggestion: Sennheiser 300S earbuds.
Great. Put that in the text there so people can put it in the comments after the show, and then people will see it. And as always, Dale at the end. Rock on, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Later.